So today's video is going to be a little bit shorter than our typical video. We are going to look at schedules and some of the different features that they can employ, as well as solar studies. Unfortunately, I might have a couple of issues I run into with solar studies purely because of the fact that I'm on a school computer here at the high school, which has some restrictions applied to it. And a lot of times when I try to do solar studies, I run into some problems with just loading them and loading locations, but I can still walk you through the process of how to do it. Now, if we think back to uh, quite a few lectures um, ago, we talked about schedules and how schedules are kind of a chart that looks through the different components of the building, whether it is the windows, the doors, the finishes of the rooms, and all of the different materials that would be inside of our building. So when we are putting those together, what we would do in the past is we would come up with an Excel spreadsheet that would have all of those. And even if we take a look at As You Learn in the resources for standards, there are, or let's see, where did I link them? They're linked somewhere in here, the CAD standards. No? Okay, here we go. Here in the resources for the CAD standards, sorry about that, there is an Excel sheet that you can download that has a lot of schedule defaults in there. So things like how you would lay out a schedule for doors or a schedule for windows, and it would have information about the size of it, where it's located, and all this other information. Now, in those schedules, you'd have to enter all that information in manually. So you'd have to go in and type out what would be in there for the mark. So you would put a little tag on it that would say that this is concrete beam 1, and then you would type in all of the information in here manually. You can also create these tables or schedules directly in AutoCAD. You can just start to create a table right in there, but still you'd have to put in all your information manually. So if you wanted to put this together, a schedule of the room finishes, you'd first have to tag it that this is room 1 and that it's called the living room and what level it's located on, which wall it is, and the material that would be put on it. All of that stuff would need to be entered in manually. With Revit, when we are putting information related to our doors and our windows, all of that information is being stored in the component of the window. So things like its width, its height, its material, the glazing, fire rating, all of that stuff is just stored inside the component that is making up the window. And therefore, once we tag it, we can have that schedule be put together automatically for us, which can be really cool and really nifty, because then also if anything changes further down the line, we can easily have the schedule updated to match. So the first thing we have to do in Revit in order to be able to make a schedule is to place tags on objects. So tags can be placed on rooms, windows, doors, pretty much anything that's loaded into your project can have a tag placed on it. And that's going to let it know that this is something then to quantify or label to potentially put in a schedule. So I'm going to go into my level 1 floor plan. Since I have it placed on this sheet, I can go into this floor plan by either double clicking on this view and then see how everything else gets kind of half scaled or grayed out. That means then that this view is active, and it's the same thing as if I double clicked over here. And again, to get out of that view, I can double click outside of it. I'm just going to go in through the project browser because that's what I'm more familiar with and comfortable with, and I just like working that way. So I'm going to double click here on level 1, and I can tag my objects in here as well as my rooms. So we have our room tags available here where we can place rooms and we can tag rooms. So if I go to tag this room, the issue I'm going to have is that this hasn't been made into a room yet. So I can't just place tags on things that I haven't defined as a room boundary. So I can first have to go into room, and then I can click to place it, and it's going to already put a tag on there because I have this tag on placement selected already. But if I didn't want that, I can just check that off and have it turned off. So it's tagged, this is just room, and it's labeled it as room 1. If I hit escape, it's going to end the command, and if I wanted to separate rooms that maybe don't have any direct wall separation for it, so let's say if I have a big open space and I wanted to differentiate between like a kitchen and a living room, but there just is no wall to separate them, I can add in a room separator. So what that's just going to do is allow me to tag them as 2 separate spaces. However, we wouldn't have to just put a wall in there. In this case though, I'm not going to need that, but just to make sure that you know that that option exists. So I'll go back into the room 1 again, and this time I'll just place another room. So I have room 1, room 2, neither of them have a name. And then I'll just hit escape twice to end the command. If I want to give them names, I can click on them right here, and then if I just slowly click on the top part, I can name one of them. So I'll just call it storage, but really you can name them whatever you want. And then I'll call this workspace. So I'm just clicking on the tag, then clicking on the word, and then to end it, I'll either click somewhere off or hit escape. If I want to renumber the rooms in the tag, it's the same as if we were renumbering the views on the sheets. So I can't rename or renumber this room 2 because this already has the room designation 2. So if I do my slow click on here and I try to name it 2, it's saying, hey, you have both of these tagged as 2, and they're 2 different areas with 2 different names. So I'm just then going to come to click on this one, and then I can renumber this one 1. Typically, you would just want to click on them in the order that you know you want the numbers for them to show up like in a schedule, but oftentimes when you're just kind of clicking and placing all of your tags, it's kind of hard to remember which ones you want to show up first. I would often just click on them as so I would want this to be 1 because this is the first room I'd enter, and then where I'd go next and next and next. But ultimately you can kind of keep them numbered however you want them to appear on your schedule. So I have my rooms tagged. Additionally, if I wanted to tag any like doors or windows, to do that I would go into the Annotate tab, and then we have options to place tags on objects. So we can either tag by category or we can tag all. So this tag all is going to tag like all of the windows in one step, versus tag by category would tag just a single window. So depending on what you want to do, you can choose either or. So I'm just going to use like the tag all and just say like I want all of the doors tagged and hit apply. And if I move this out of the way, we can see that the doors both got tagged. This got tagged as door number 1. This got tagged as door 4, which not crazy about, but we can easily change it. We can use this to just to tag all of our rooms. And the same thing then if I wanted to do the windows. But I'm going to do the windows by tagging by category just to show you the 2 ways to do it. If I wanted to tag my different types of walls, I can check that off and hit apply, and you can see then that the doors got labeled with tags, but there's no information inside of it yet. And so that's where I then can determine what type of tag I want to put on this wall. So I can say that I want this tagged as wall type B. I can click on here and say I want this to be wall type, I believe that's going to be A for our exterior. Now it put this one inside and I really don't like that. So again, I can easily just move it so that this way it's not awkwardly sitting inside. And we can see too, when I change this wall tag, all of the other ones that are associated with this same wall tag updated automatically. So I don't have to worry about changing them of what type of wall it is. And I'm going to check off leader line for it too, just because I like my tags for my walls to be off the object. And so if I click on this and drag it out and then check off leader line, you don't have to ever hit apply in here, because the second you move your cursor out of it, it applies automatically. That goes for every setting in the properties, which is sometimes annoying, sometimes helpful. Now, with this door tag that got applied automatically, it for some reason labeled it as door 4, which I just don't like, because if I only have door 1 here and door 4 here, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. So again, I'm just going to click on that piece of text, and that way I can change it to door 2. That way it is easier to just kind of understand the relationship between this door and this door. Now for my windows, to tag them, that's where I can do a tag by category, and I can click on each window and it'll apply the tag for me. Some of the tags, again, if I saw this time, I'm going to hit escape twice. Some of the tags are awkwardly placed in relation to like the dimensions themselves. Some of them aren't that bad. My only thing that I dislike is that it again tags them with just a number that seems random to me and you, and I couldn't blame you if that number seems pretty random. So I'm just going to like click on that and rename it to window 1, and I'll say OK. And now it updated all of them so that every one of these is window 1. And I'm just going to move them so that in some cases, like in this one, I'm just going to click and drag it out. So that way they're not like awkwardly placed throughout the drawing. You can also, if you want to, like rename these and have these based on letters. So if I wanted this to be window type A, I can change it so that way the windows are using letters and the doors are using numbers. Oftentimes that's really helpful, because not only does the shape help show that this hexagon is showing that this is a window versus this circle or oval showing that this is a door, but then having your windows labeled with letters and your doors labeled with numbers is very helpful, just to show that this is in fact a window, not a door. Particularly with sliding doors and sliding windows, symbol wise on a set of plans, it's hard to tell the difference between a window and a door. And then tag wise, if it's a very small, or rather a very large building, which would therefore create a very small drawing scale wise, sometimes it can even be a little harder to tell the difference between a circle and a hexagon. So then just having that differentiation between a letter tagging the window and a number tagging the door can be helpful. So if we wanted to just kind of further improve like visuals of this drawing, we can also use colors to tag our floor plan. In this case, since we only have 2 different rooms in here, we're not really going to need like a color-filled legend to tell the difference between our rooms or our spaces. But if we had a much larger structure, then having a color legend for those different rooms is particularly helpful. Especially then the different types of rooms will get tagged that's the same color. So for instance, in your larger Revit project, when you have your different bedrooms and your bathrooms, when they are named the exact same thing, they are then going to get tagged with the same color in the legend, and that can really help make kind of like a floor plan map a lot easier to navigate. because instead of looking for the room bathroom, you're just looking for the particular color that's associated with bathrooms. So I've got all of my tags here placed on my floor plan, and then it would be time to create a schedule for my various pieces of information. Now, to create a schedule, there's a few different ways you could go about it. The way I find easiest to do is, sorry, my mic fell off. So the way I find easiest is to go up to the View tab, and then you can create schedules. They're going to appear here in your project browser. In the schedules area, you can also right click and say that you want to create a new schedule. Because there's no little plus sign next to it, that means that there are no schedules currently made. There's no legends currently made. There is a rendering, and then it will give us the details of our rendering. So there's the end rendering that I have saved here. We've got a detail view, we've got a section view. Any of these that have a little plus sign next to them, or a minus sign, means that those views are open, and then the plus sign means that it's closed. One thing I'll often do, like for here, is for the ceiling plan one, I usually close it because I'll accidentally click on those all the time, and that way I don't accidentally click on them. But we don't have any schedules made, that's why there's no plus or minus sign next to it. So again, I can either right click on here to create a new schedule, or I can click here to create a new schedule. So when we go to make a new schedule, it's going to give us a drop down or kind of a scroll through list of all of the different schedules we could particularly make from something. And based on the type of schedule that we're making, is going to give information about what can be loaded into here. So if I'm making a schedule based on doors, it's going to assume stuff that we might want to be put in there, because there's going to be different information related to doors that we can load in versus if it was going to be information related to a wall or a structure from a wall. So I'm just going to click on, say that I want to make a schedule for the doors, and click OK. And then it's going to say, here is all the information about doors that you can use in your schedule. So then we can go through and we can determine what we want in there. So we always want to know the mark. The mark is going to be like what is it tagged with. So if I just scooch this over, this is mark 1, this is mark 2, versus with the windows, it's just saying that they're marked with the letter A. So to load things into our schedule, after we select it here, we're just going to click on the little add parameter, and then we can add in different pieces of information that we might want to do versus its thickness. So if I wanted to add in its thickness, its width, its height, all of this stuff in here is listed by alphabetical order. I don't know why I couldn't think of that word. So it's going to be loaded in there that way. Maybe if I wanted to put in, the frame material, any piece of information that I might want. Manufacturer, if I had a cost associated to it. So for instance, if I was to be downloading this Revit family directly from BIM object or from a manufacturer site like Pella for Windows, they might have the cost of it directly imprinted in the object. We can also just load in our own manual costs, so that way if I needed to run a analysis of how much it's going to cost for all of the different doors or windows, I can manually type that stuff into the schedule if I wanted to. If I needed to move pieces of information down in here, so if, for instance, maybe if I had multi-stories and I wanted to add in level, right now level is just kind of in the middle of my list, so I can move it here because I would typically want it to have the tag of it, then the level, maybe the room it was associated with. I don't think you can actually do that with doors purely because doors are in between rooms, but for windows I think you can do that. But in this case, I don't want level, so I'm actually going to remove it from my parameters. And I'm going to say that I want the width and the height, and then the thickness and the frame, finish frame, and everything. For filter, you can also say that, like, if the mark is equal to like 1, so that way it only is just going to filter and show me just the doors that are labeled as 1. So this is if I wanted to look through my schedule and kind of have it be only just focusing on the doors of this one particular type. But we're just going to have no filters applied because we just want to create a schedule for all of the doors. But if maybe I wanted a schedule for just the room finishes of the bedrooms versus just the finishes of the kitchen, or just cabinet or casework in only the kitchen in one schedule, and then casework for the bathroom in another one, we can filter it for that. We can sort our different pieces. For our formatting too, we can have it where we maybe want to change the orientation for some of the different parts or pieces, but we'll leave that alone. And we're going to leave everything with the appearance alone too, but maybe if we wanted to have it where it is just kind of stylized a little different or has different text in there, we can change that up to have our schedule appear a little bit nicer. But I'm just going to leave all of that alone and click OK. And I have my schedule here. It's not really giving me a whole lot of information purely because there isn't a lot of information given in the particular doors that we've put in there. But it is saying that the width, the mark of my door is I've got door 1 and I've got door 2. It's 3 feet wide, 6 feet, 8 inches tall, and that the door itself is 2 inches thick. If I wanted to apply a thickness to it or a finish to it, I can just say like paint, and I could type that in manually. And if I wanted to put a frame material, and so I wanted to say, like aluminum, I can put that in, and I can also apply my own cost if I want to. From this drop down, then it'll let me apply other things if I wanted to. Since this is a cased opening, it's going to apply a little bit differently when it comes to the doors. So because of the fact that it's not particularly a door in there, it's trying to get information about the door, and this is just an opening itself, it didn't automatically apply. And so we're just going to go through and add in information manually. So you can override information that you get in here. For thickness and finish, all of that would be, of course, left blank because, again, there's no particular door. It is just the opening for where a door would potentially go. And then I've got my door schedule. So this isn't going to be placed in a particular view. It then is just here as its own individual piece that we can later load onto a sheet. So if I wanted to make another schedule, I can come up here in the View tab to Schedules, or again, right-click, New Schedule, and this time I'll make a window one. So I'm just scrolling all the way down. Just going to say I want a window schedule. And it's asking, what do you want to put in here? So I'm going to put mark, load that in. I'm going to put count, and then we'll put in the sill height, and then width and height. So I'm just loading in a couple of different pieces based on whatever I wanted in my schedule. And I'll say OK. And then we have our marks, which is not marking the way I want. And then our count, our sill height, our width, and our height for our windows then are all included in here. Let me pause and figure out why my marks came in weird. Okay, I figured out how to fix my problem. Okay, I'm sorry, I just realized I was muted for most of that time. So let me undo a bunch, and I'll just redo that schedule again. So I've got my schedule here. I'm going to create a new schedule, scroll down to Windows. You can just fix things from your original schedule. So if you had some bonkers things going on in there, don't worry about making a new one and deleting it. But I'm just going to create a brand new schedule, and I'm going to load in a mark, a count, a still height, a width, and a height. So that this way I have the same thing that I had earlier, where it marked each one of these individually. It's listing each one of them as a count of 1, when in reality it's 5 of the exact same window. And so how can I fix those issues? Pretty easily to fix this. If I click here on this column of mark, I can actually change what this column is signifying, and I actually want to have it be the type mark, so that way it's going to fill it with whatever is located inside my tag. So whatever text I have in there, whether it's a number or a letter, it'll easily fill in. Then for the count here, how it's still counting each one of these individually, and in this case I just want it to signify how many windows in total are there of window type A. For that, I'm going to change my schedule properties for my sorting and grouping. So these are properties that you can set by default when you're first making a schedule. So when you're in here and you are placing all of your different fields and you are filtering out anything you don't want, in this sorting one, you can also have it where it is not itemizing every instance. So if I uncheck that and click OK, it is then, instead of making each window its own specific instance in the schedule, it is saying that for window type A, there's 5 of them in total. So that way I don't have to go and count where each one is. I can also then have here in the schedule, I can add in different parts. So if I wanted to add in a field, I can come here to edit the fields, and I can go and add different pieces of information into here if I wanted to. So if I wanted to update anything in there, I can. Now, sometimes you do perhaps want everything itemized, so you can highlight the individual pieces. So the fact that I have these windows counted as 5, when I go to highlight them in the model, it's going to highlight all 5 of the windows, and particularly that might be not ideal if I have them on like different levels or things like that. So in those cases, I may want each one individually. But if I'm looking at my door schedule and I'm unsure of what door 2 is, I can click on it in the schedule and I can say highlight in model, and it'll bring it to me there in this floor plan, and I can easily see which is the, or what door it's particularly talking about. So if in any case you're unsure of ones, or maybe there's information missing and you have to manually go add it in, that highlight and model trick in the schedule can be particularly helpful to figure it out. And you can do schedules with lots of different things. You can do schedules of different wall types. You can do schedules of different room finishes, all of these different things. So within your schedules, we can find lots of information. So I can do my wall schedule. And then I can even do it based on like the thermal resistance, the structural materials. So I'd still want to just do it based on a type mark. And then, because the type mark then will bring that in. and it'll then load in. Why that didn't load, I'm not sure. For my type A, I'll have to look into that a little bit, but you can also put different things in here. If you have renderings or free images that you even want it to load in, so maybe then you have like a wall schedule done of pictures, you can then have it with images, and you can either link directly to renderings that you've made or just other pictures that you've made, or then you can even add in separate pictures that you may want to for your different wall schedules and types. So you can do a lot of interesting things with your schedules. If you don't want a schedule or maybe messed one up really bad, you can also right click on them and delete them to get rid of them. To add schedules to sheets, sure, I'll save my project. To add schedules onto sheets, you'll just go into your sheet, so I'll double click on it here, and then I can load my schedule into the sheet by just dragging and then clicking to drop it. If I wanted to change the format for these columns and their sizes, I then can drag on these little arrows here to change any material, anything there. And if I wanted to edit any of the text in there, I can double click and it'll bring me into the schedule itself to be able to change the information that I want. And so again, for our window schedule, I then can just drag and drop and put my information in. Depending on how you want your schedules formatted, you can alter them on your sheets. Oftentimes too, what I'll find myself doing is creating a schedule for notes and then just kind of having it be a blank space for me to write notes and easily format it in these empty spaces where I'd put like the different contractual information about a particular building or site, because it's a lot easier to format a schedule into several columns and fit nicely on a sheet of paper or into an area on a sheet of paper than it is to try to use a text box to do so. And so that is just a little dipping our toes into schedules and tags. It's something that you were working on in your major projects, so you've probably already done it so far, but if not, then here's a little dip our toes into it. Then the last thing I want to look at today in this video is doing solar analysis on objects. So again, I might run into a couple of problems just because of the computer that I'm working on, but we will see how it goes for us. So the easiest way for me to run a solar analysis is to look at my object, or rather my building, three-dimensionally. So I'm just going to double click on the 3D in the curly brackets, or click on the little house up here to open up my three-dimensional view. I have this section box active, and that's just something that I'll use in three-dimensional views to kind of cut away parts of like my land, or drag to cut away like parts of my house to be able to view inside of it. But with a solar analysis, we do not want that on. So I'm just going to click off of this and then just scroll down in here to my 3D views and just uncheck section box. So that way I'm just looking at my site as a whole. But if you ever needed to turn it on, that's where you would go to turn on a section box. So I'm just going to keep it turned off, and then I want to turn on two main settings in my 3D view to really get the full effect of my solar analysis. One of them would be to turn shadows on, and then the next would be to turn my sun path on. So if I click on this little sun, I'm going to check off to turn the sun path on, and it's going to ask to use a specified project location, date, and time, or to continue with the current settings. So if I say to use my current location, it's going to default to Boston, where I believe that's where the Autodesk headquarters are. But we can change the location if we so choose using maps and different pieces of information. So what it's done is it's chosen the day of March 28th and then it's giving me a solar analysis, and it's currently telling me what the sun would be doing on my particular site at 4:44 p.m. I can drag it along that path to look at my sun in different areas or different parts of the day. So if I move it, we can see how the shadows are moving, and I can even move it to drag it to a different day. The purpose of the solar analysis is to give us two pieces of information. One, what our landscape and what our facade is going to do for natural lighting of our building. And then we can also use it if we wanted to do any green building energy kind of analysis that we're going to look at a little bit on Wednesday. So within our solar analysis, we get that information about how the sun is going to affect our building and how then our different site features might be producing shadows. So for instance, if it was a summer day and the sun is more back towards, or rather higher in the sky, how is that going to affect shade that we're getting here versus in the winter? So are we going to have a big glaring sun heating up our building in the summer versus are we going to have a nice low sun in the south for the winter, providing us with some natural heat? So those are things we can kind of look at and play around with. So if I click on this little sun again, I can alter my sun settings and I can do a couple of different things with them. So by default here, my location is Boston, Massachusetts. If I click on this little ellipses, I'll be able to search for different areas, but this is where I'm going to run into this error because for some reason on the school computers, I'm not allowed to search for different areas. I used to be able to, but now I cannot. So we can provide different addresses. So if I wanted to search for Boone, I'm going to run into this error that says we can't find it, but then I can find different weather stations and I can find the closest one around the specific town that I am in, and I can choose it from this list, which will then just help make the sun path as accurate as possible for my particular building. This site tab is just purely because, and I'll just hit cancel on here, in massing and site, or excuse me, in the manage tab, you can define a project location, which is similar to the way that sun setting works. It's going to bring up the same menu, but I just can't load in a particular site or height for things like that. So we're just going to have to use what we've got. So I'm just going to leave my location set at Boston, Massachusetts, since I'm not going to be able to define a different one. So let's see, I can pick up from this default city list. So let's see if I can find, I might just do Burlington. Central Islip, that's not far from where I grew up. I'll just find a North Carolina one here and call it a day, even if it's not close to us. I'll just go back up to Burlington then, because I saw that. Unless I made that up in my head. There we go. So I'm just going to pick that one just because it's as close as I'm going to get, and I don't want to just waste time in this video searching for one. And I'll say OK, and then that'll have the location of my site, or I could search for a particular road and find the closest one available. Then I can choose a particular date. So right now it's saying July 11th, and that's just because from where I dragged it to last time around. But if there was a specific date I wanted it to appear on, I can change that. I've seen a couple of different examples of architecture where they have, because it's like a memorial to something, it'll have something significant happen at that date and time. There have been a couple of monuments for like September 11th, where on September 11th, at a specific time when the towers were hit, then the shadows go and play in a specific, or play would be a poor word in that scenario, but the shadows will have some significance on that date. So if there is a particular day that you're looking for, but oftentimes I don't want to do a still study. I want to do a multi-day study where then we can look at it based on a particular season, or we can look at it for an entire year, or we could do a single day based on like the summer solstice and the winter solstice. So those are the two important days for us to want to be able to look at if we're only going to do analysis of two particular days. Because for a summer solstice, that's going to be the day where it is the longest day and the sun is highest in the sky, versus the winter is going to be the shortest day and the sun is at its lowest point in the sky. So if you're going to do a single day, those are the 2 days that you want to look at and record. But I always like to do a multi-day of just a 1 year long study. And then I always will also check off that I want to do sunrise to sunset. And I'll say okay, and we can see then that the sun changed pretty drastically compared from Boston to North Carolina, just because the sun is going to have a different impact in that. If I want to look at my sun at different areas, I can drag it along. And if I want to export this study for something to look at, that is where I can come to my File, Export, Images and Animations, and I can export a solar study. So if I'm doing a solar study of an entire year, it's going to come up with a lot of different, it's going to be a very long study for it. But if I was doing just a single day, it'll only come up with a couple of seconds. So that is within your extra credit for your first part of the Revit project. You have the option to do either a solar study and then run it and export it as a video. And since it'll be just for the like 1 day that you're looking at, it'll run through pretty fast. So if I click and save this one, it's running through, breaking it down frame by frame, and there I have done the solar study for July 1st. And if I wanted then to go do it for another particular day, I can go look at that solar study. What it's done is it's just broken down, and it'll be here as a video, where then we can kind of go and look at which wish it wouldn't. I'm going to change the settings around if I did another one to not be done in 5 seconds. So not even 5 seconds. Export. Solar study. And I would change so if I make it more frames with how many frames per second, start, end at. To play around with these little numbers to get it to where it will be much longer for your study, because you'd want to be able to actually look at it and interpret it as you're going through. But ultimately, what we'll do with the solar studies a lot is go and kind of play around with the different dates in there and just kind of move the sun around just to see how it's going to be playing, particularly if you're designing something with passive solar. Because if you're designing something to be passive, or designing something with a passive solar design in mind, you're going to want low sun in the winter to be able to kind of hit in the southern windows and have lots of that natural light exposure because it's going to also provide natural heat. And then you're also going to want to have some greenery and some trees around in the summer then that will come in and block that sun. Otherwise, it's going to get really, really hot in the summer. So you'll kind of have those two different battles at play between the winter and the summer. And so that, in a small, brief nutshell, is how you would do a solar analysis. I apologize for my little issue in the video with the schedule and also the pausing because I've been sneezing like crazy and I don't want to do that on the recording. But that is just a brief little foray into schedules and solar analysis. In the next video, we'll look at the Green Building Studio, which is an add-on that is super helpful within Revit to kind of help do energy analysis and also look at the sustainability and lifespan of different projects.